Right, it's 7:30. We'd love to hear from the Manchester United fans who agonisingly were beaten last night in one of the most interesting and best and tense penalty shootouts that anybody can remember. If you've got memories of penalty shootouts, you'd like to share with us this morning, 0879 180 180. But if you're a Man United fan, was this a referendum on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's management, or is this a goblet of minor prestige and therefore not important? Owen?
The latter. It is definitely the latter. You can have an opinion on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's abilities as a football manager, but you'd want to have based that opinion on at least some of the 60 games that they've played this season that didn't involve last night's game. Like, was last night the most important competition that Manchester United played in this season? Absolutely not. It was the third most important competition they played in this season. Was it the biggest
game of the season?
Maybe in isolation, but to distill something down into one game is to miss the entire point of where this Manchester United season has gone. The title race that they fell away from, the Champions League group that they crashed out from. Those were the two important moments of the season.
It's true. However, doesn't last night... So are you honestly going to tell me that what your view of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was pre-game is not exacerbated and explained and writ large in the biggest game of the season? So it's the thing about it, it doesn't come in isolation. It comes at the end of a season. And it is, I would argue, the perfect example of everything that there is in this Manchester United and this Ole Gunnar Solskjaer team and philosophy and mode of being. And so, rather than not being important, it actually is the absolute perfect example.
Yeah. So, those things that you say might have popped up during the season, though, or popped up last night. These failings either on the sideline or in the Manchester United squad. If you haven't seen those things pop up at various points during the season, then you have not been watching Manchester United. Like, they did fall away in the Premier League. They did crash out of the Champions League. Those are two things that happened. To think that everything was rosy in the garden until last night is to miss the point of this Manchester United season entirely. The whole point of this Manchester United season, from what I could tell anyway, was that this was going to be a team that would move towards a Premier League title challenge next season. That was how we were speaking about this. Whereas all of a sudden, the Europa League became the Champions League. Winning that trophy last night became all important. We were talking about Matt Busby's birthday. We were talking about the anniversary of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's goal in the Champions League final. This was the level that the Europa League final had been elevated to. The Europa League does not matter. It does not matter, but all of a sudden this became like the biggest fixture for Manchester United in years last night. When in actual fact, the more important thing that happened for Manchester United this year was that maybe they came close to Manchester City at times. Like, nobody's going to care about this trophy next season if they're challenging for the Premier League. Now, the thing is, if you read into last night and say there are certain elements of that team that aren't able to challenge for a Premier League next season, then that's where the issues begin, in my opinion. But the fact that Villarreal are Europa League champions, I mean, it's a bad sign of Manchester United if they desperately care about not winning the Europa League, in my view.
But that's where we are. Like, that. This isn't Manchester United of Alex Ferguson. Even on the show yesterday, we heard that Gary Neville said the League Cup in 2006 was important for them, and then they challenged for the title the next year. Daniel Harris made the point. Like, that Manchester United team had within it a bunch of players who already had a load of medals. This team doesn't. And so therefore, if you believe in the Solskjaer project, if you think that he is the person to bring you, if he is to Manchester United what Jurgen Klopp is to Liverpool and what Pep Guardiola is, maybe Roberto Mancini is, to Manchester City, then you need evidence along the way to show that despite the failings of the whole season, in big games, on big nights, you can pick a team, you can manifest destiny by fixing the problems and overcoming the issues. But what happened last night was all of those issues that you talk about were exacerbated. All of the tactical stasis, the getting in his own head, the squad not having any depth, him not trusting in those players, him not making any changes for as long as he did, him not subbing off the goalkeeper who's never saved a penalty. Like, all of that stuff gets magnified and exacerbated. And in a club like Manchester United, where they haven't had the glory of, or any of the recent glories like the FA Cup win or the Europa League win have been completely false dawns because they had the wrong managers, then what happens is last night becomes really important. And the club imbued it with importance because that's what Manchester United do. They trade off their history. They make money off their history. They commodify their history the way they always have done. And it's always been a huge part of what made them so important to people who are not from Manchester. And it has made them this very rich corporation. And you need success. You need success to keep that going. And they didn't get the success last night because, as you say, all those failings were there, but Solskjaer couldn't overcome them. Now, is that terminal? I think we're asking that question not after last night, but we're asking it after that whole season.
Well, that's the way it should be. It should be the whole season. But you're starting to sound like you're describing Liverpool circa 2011, 2012, that they commodify history. That is not a good place for Manchester United to be in. This should not have been the be-all and end-all, but it does seem that there is like a doomsday scenario that exists now where, you know, the season is a bad season. Like Solskjaer asked after the game, says, no, it's not a successful season, of course. He talks about the fine margins in football. One kick can make a season or diminish it. I disagree with that. I think that the 60 games that we saw before last night will be the mark of how successful this Manchester United season is, because as soon as they crashed out of the Champions League and as soon as they distanced themselves, or Manchester City distanced themselves from Manchester United, that for me was the silverware version of Manchester United season down the drain. They are the two competitions that Manchester United fans should trade off.
Sure.
Forget about the history.
Sure, but you can't write off the last 3 months of the season then. Like if you're a club and if you win this trophy, then you're pointing to, we finished second and we won a trophy and we had the big game mentality to come through and big occasions. And also the way they won their semi-final, there was spectacular performances, there was loads of goals, there was vibrancy of football. If they performed really well last night on a big European stage with fans in the stadium, then you would have been able to say this was something. It wasn't nothing. I think what you're saying is that last night was nothing, it doesn't actually matter. And they, like...
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it doesn't matter as much as some people will tell you, because if we're looking for real evidence to where Manchester United are going, we've had way more opportunities to see that during the season than just last night. I'm not denying that it wasn't important. Of course it was important. It would be like...
But the problem is that everything that we saw over the course of the season, you can read it both ways. You could read it in a positive way and say, here's the team that he inherited that was really not great, that had like been completely shot of confidence, and he has overseen the team go through terrible runs, but actually he's built them into something and they're ready to move, they're ready to go. But it looks like, on the evidence of last night, and it's a small sample size, that they're not ready to move and they're not ready to go, that he hasn't found a way to put all his best players in the team at the same time. The conundrum that we were talking about yesterday on the show with Daniel Harris was like, how do you fit Greenwood and Rashford and Bruno and Pogba in the same team? What do you think the evidence is now? Do we not learn something about that last night?
Well, for sure. And I mean, that's what you take away from last night, more so than the fact that they're not Europa League champions, I think, is that you actually can't maybe play them in the one team. Like I thought Scott McTominay, for example, was excellent last night, maybe Manchester United's best player. And it just kind of seems weird that they probably need to sign a better version of him, either to play alongside him or maybe to replace him beside
I think you're right.
Pogba, because like it's hard to know exactly what they do in that position. But of course there were massive learnings, a terrible word to take away from last night. But this is also a European final against a team with an excellent manager. Like Unai Emery is an excellent manager. And he had a bad time at England, but that doesn't change the fact that he's an excellent manager. And I know if you were... I wasn't watching it on BT Sport last night, I was watching it on Virgin, but by all accounts, BT Sport were completely dismissive of what Villarreal are. Manchester United are better than Villarreal, don't get me wrong, but Villarreal had to beat a few good teams to get to this final. They have to be a good team to be in a Europa League final. So a strange thing can happen against a team like Villarreal in a one-off game like this. Manchester United should have the game killed over 90 minutes. There's only so much in your team selection you can do with that. I think that Solskjaer picked a team that had enough of his attacking talent on the pitch, and he kind of went for it. He was missing Harry Maguire. Like, so are you putting the blame at Solskjaer's door for last night?
Yeah, look, at this stage, right, the managers live and die by how they perform in big games. And in many big games this season, Solskjaer has done well. But it turns out there's been loads of opportunities for them over the course of the season to push on in matches, and they settle for draws. When I actually think that a trophy last night for Solskjaer would have been hugely important, because it franks the work that they've done. And I think dismissing the Europa League final because it's just the Europa League actually misses the point. You're right. It's not the tournament they should have been in at the start of the year. It's not the tournament that they start out going, well, we're going to win the Europa League if we get knocked out of the Champions League. But they're supposed to. You're supposed to. You are the super club. You were the team who was in the European Super League, not Villarreal. You are supposed to beat the city of 50,000 people in the final, and that's a sign that you're doing your job properly.
Let me just clarify that. Sorry. The point is about the trophy. So if
the trophy matters, though. All of a sudden, when you get knocked out, you recalibrate, and the trophy matters. Joe Schmidt won the European Challenge Cup in the year that they got knocked out of the European Cup, and they did not celebrate that like it was a European Cup. But it was still something for them at the end of the year to do their lap of honour, to have that night where they all were, and some players really benefited from it. No one looks back and goes, geez, you won that trophy. But what it did do was it kept everything ticking over. Kept everybody going, yeah, this is going in the right direction. That was a bit of a blip. Not going to happen again. We've learned from it. We came back from it. We won other big games in Europe against good teams. And at the end of that, we put out a team that I managed, that over the course of this season, I've learned what my best 11 is for those big occasions, which was completely not what happened last night. He pulled a pep on it and got in his own head. He was obviously talking too much to Ferguson on the way over on the plane, going, I'm going to play Fred and McTominay because that's what I always do in these big. Nah, you can't do that. You got to go for it, Ole. Come on.
But Fred and McTominay, not playing Fred isn't the reason why Manchester United are not Europa League champions.
Well, I don't know. You don't know.
That's a complete irrelevant point to make.
It's sorry. Well, then don't get sidetracked, right? But that's the duo that he played in all his big games.
Yeah.
In all the big games.
Because they hold well defensively. Like, did they go 1-0 down if Fred's on the pitch? I mean,
maybe not. I mean, they don't trust the two centre-backs.
I think they got a better chance of scoring with Paul Pogba on the pitch rather than Fred on the pitch.
Did it work? Did it work?
They got a better... I think that...
Did it work?
I would be confident that if he played Fred and McTominay, we would be having the exact same conversation this morning. Just one last point.
I actually don't think we would. I don't think we would. I think they would have won the game. But anyway...
So Fred's the key. He plays Fred next season. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is like the best manager in the world.
Last night in the game. You're getting sidetracked by this. The point is that the trophy mattered last night, and to say it doesn't, and to say that not winning that game is irrelevant, I actually think what it means is that Solskjaer goes from being somebody who had all of next season to suddenly somebody who's on a hot seat if the season doesn't start well. I think that's the importance of it. And I'm not saying that I think that's right or wrong, but that's what's going to happen with the Manchester United fans. Because doubt creeps in. And at Old Trafford, when the fans return in September, October, if the form is bad, they don't have the trophy to fall back on. He can't point to, oh, look, we finished second last season. Yeah, well, so what? Jose Mourinho finished second. I think that's why this matters, Owen.
So, but also, Jose Mourinho won the Europa League. it could be thrown right back at you.
They got rid of him.
You can work this both ways. My point is not that the trophy doesn't matter at all. Of course, these things matter. What matters more than that is if you believe that Solskjaer showed a new sort of failing last night that is detrimental to the season next year. And if you think that, then fair enough. My point is that you should have been able to spot those failings during the season. I'm not here saying that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to be Manchester United manager this time next year. I'm not even saying he is an outstanding manager. I'm saying he's a good manager. They might actually be able to go out and get a better manager next season. I think Solskjaer's done a good job, not a great job. And my point is that people are completely overreacting to one incident last night. Well, okay, so it was an incident that lasted for 90 minutes plus 30 minutes plus.
End of the season.
It was a big body of work, but there was also other opportunities to gather that evidence before last night. If you're only waking up to certain failings,
but no one's only waking up to it.
Last night, then I think you've been lying under a rock for a lot of the season.
But all of the things that we have assumed, the outcome of sport is not determined, and so therefore, what we think about things is actually up for grabs. A big game last night is new evidence. And either you fall back on the biases that you've built up over the course of the season, or there's an opportunity for the team and the manager to blast through those and go, no, what you know is not true. We're taking a giant leap forward here. We are a swashbuckling, buccaneering team who are able to go out there against a wily European campaigner like Unai Emery and how he sets up his team and slash them, because we're Man United. They didn't do it. And I think that is new evidence.
And that's why they're in the Europa League. The reason why they're in the Europa League is because of those failures. That is why they're in this competition. And the reason why they're in this competition is evidence that we've seen already this season. Okay. Like that's just the basis of my point, is that there were new things last night, but it's not the entire thesis on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And it just seems to be like...
But the trophy would have given him... Do you not agree that the trophy would have given him an extra coat, an extra little veneer next season?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
When the
would
blip comes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And like, in the famous words of Henry Winter, the clock is ticking, baby. Probably not from the owner's perspective, or, as I made the point yesterday, the new CEO's perspective. But at the same time, you know, if things don't start great, all of a sudden, the new CEO might find it easier to get rid of the club legend who didn't win the trophy last year when he had the opportunity and did the things and made the problems that that have been there all season seem like they were actually problems, as opposed to, oh, this is just the learning curve for people.
You're right, but like my point is that I think that the reason why they might have arrived at that decision is as much to do with the fact that they didn't challenge for the season's Premier League properly and that they didn't make it to the knockout stages of the Champions League. So that's just my point, that this is just another layer on the season rather than being the referendum on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer last night. That's my opinion on it.
Okay.
Just one quick thing before we get to Phil. It's really interesting. You look at Solskjaer's pre-match comments talking about the fact that his wife's birthday is on the 26th. We've got married on the 26th, so I have to believe in destiny. Daniel's story on Twitter pointed out that he referred to the omens of number 26 and then left his number 26, Dean Henderson, on the bench for the penalty shootout, which is just remarkable.
Wow. What would have happened if he'd stuck Dean Henderson on? I mean, that we don't know. 7:46 this morning. Let me tell you what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock. We have Europa League Final chat with Phil. Sports pages at 7:55. Omar Ahmedeli, Ireland's latest superstar, a potential successor to Rio Ferdinand in Premier League terms, and probably getting straight into the Ireland team as well. He's been talking with Owen, GAA with Tommy at 8:20. We're going to be reflecting the deluge of comments coming in about Manchester United the whole way through. Our Euros cheat sheet is finishing off Group C, I think. Andy Mitten at 8:40, Rihanna Jarrett at 9:05, and TV Picks at 9:20 this morning. Now, Phil Egan, good morning to you. How are you?
How are you doing, Lance?
My case is here that last night was actually important because what it does is, well, first off, it's an opportunity for Solskjaer to prove that in those one big off matches, he is at an elite European level and he can do something to interrupt the pattern. And the second thing is that it gives him a bit of breathing space when it comes to whenever the blip happens next season. Am I right or wrong?
Well, no, I would agree with you. I can see the merits in both arguments where, okay, you can argue United shouldn't be in the Europa League final because the only reason they're in it was because they came third in their Champions League group, a group that they were in control of, and they butchered it, where they lost to Leipzig in their last game. They just needed a point from their last two games. They go into the Europa League. Now it's a chance to win a trophy. And I think it was hugely important for Solskjaer because he hasn't won a trophy. United haven't won one in 4 years. And it just gives you a bit of confidence going into the next season. Sure, in the Premier League, they finished second this season. They obviously were third last season. So he's had 2 full seasons in the Premier League, Solskjaer, as a manager, and he's finished in the top 4. But now, conversation last season went from why can't they get past the semi-final stage to now, why can't they win trophies under Solskjaer? And if, like you said, there is a blip like there was at the start of this season, say that's 6-1 against Spurs, now off the back of what happened last night, are United going to hold fire next time? Especially if there's the likes of Antonio Conte and Zinedine Zidane floating around.
I mean, Zidane at Man United would be great, right? That would be an experiment. I mean, it would be exactly the same as Solskjaer, except the press conferences would have a French twang to them. I don't, maybe it wouldn't be the same as Solskjaer. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd prefer if it was going after Conte or Zidane, I'd go after Conte.
Well, but hang on, if you're a Liverpool fan, you wouldn't, would you?
No, but we're talking about Manchester United here.
I know. What I mean is, if you're a Liverpool fan, you want Zidane to be the Man United manager, right?
Well, I think a lot of Liverpool fans are quite happy that Solskjaer is still the manager. I mean, I think last night...
Okay, power rank those 3 for me quickly as a Liverpool fan. Is it Solskjaer 1, Zidane 2 and Conte 3?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. But, yeah, look at his team selection last night. That to me looked like a manager who was afraid to hurt the egos of a few of the players, where you're talking about Fred playing, and obviously taking Fred out, you bring Pogba into the 2, and then you can get Rashford into the team. But, there is a case that he could have left Rashford out, for example, and played Pogba on the left, but then he has Rashford as an option off the bench because he didn't use a player till the 100th minute. And United players looked absolutely shattered. They were a better team throughout the 90 minutes. They looked the better team in the second half. Unai Emery made a change where he brought on Coquelin to get some more legs in there. He obviously was then able to advance Pino into attack. And then when he brought Alcacer on later on, Pino came off. And then he changed his fullbacks at the end of the 90 minutes. So he'd have them fresh for extra time. Whereas and Villarreal looked more dangerous in extra time without threatening too much to score a goal. Whereas 100 minutes, you have to wait for Solskjaer to make his change. And that again suggests to me a guy that was afraid to upset some of his best players by taking them off in a final.
Phil, just on that has been a criticism of Solskjaer all season long. And
yeah,
I think that's the point. Like that's why we're in kind of like a debate here this morning. That's why I think there's a slight overreaction last night. Not that Solskjaer did a good job at all, or that maybe he wouldn't have been better off with a trophy. That is not my point at all. My point is that he has shown an inability to even make a substitution, let alone the correct substitution. He showed it again last night. He is being slammed for that last night, but we should have seen that all season long.
Yeah, I know. It's all well and good saying he didn't make a change, and that's what I'm trying to make the point about having somebody like Rashford on the bench to actually be able to bring a player of that quality on. Whereas if you actually look at his bench last night, you were thinking, when's he going to make a change? But you're thinking, what change can he make? Yeah. Daniel James coming on, okay, he's a Wales international, but he's not as good as what was on the pitch. Now, he obviously would bring energy and he would bring pace, but Solskjaer would have been looking at that bench thinking, who can I bring on? It's clear that there's something there he doesn't quite see in Donny van de Beek. Has Donny van de Beek got a future at Manchester United? I don't know. But Daniel James was realistically the only option. Tellez was brought on and Matter were brought on purely to take penalties. And Amad Diallo was an option, still very young, very raw, inexperienced. Are you going to throw him on in the European final? Because you throw him on and he has a shocker, then people are saying he got his substitutions wrong anyway. So these are things that Solskjaer will be able to say maybe next season, yeah, I learned from this. But also maybe this is an indication that United's first 11 is good, but they still just don't have that strength and depth in the squad.
Well, like we were making the comparison yesterday with Liverpool losing the Europa League final, and you go back and you look at that Liverpool team, and you look at the team that ultimately is the one that wins that reaches the Champions League final, that wins the Champions League, that wins the league. It's completely different.
Absolutely, yeah.
Klopp looked at that team and went, no, if I can't even win this competition, then I need radical surgery. And the first thing they did was, well, maybe not the first thing, but they got rid of Coutinho for a load of money and invested that money very wisely. If I'm Solskjaer this morning and I'm looking at my squad and I'm looking at many of those players playing to what we would consider their peak over the course of the last 12 months, and some of them obviously not at their peak, but there's radical surgery required to get that squad to be competing with Manchester City.
Yeah, unfortunately for Manchester United, Manchester City are streets ahead of everyone this season. You would like to think that Chelsea will get closer to them next season, and who knows if Saturday's game gives a chance maybe to strike a blow for Chelsea to say we're coming for you next season. Liverpool can't be as bad as they were this season, and saying that they still finished third. So Manchester United have to look at how can they close the gap on City, but also that they'll have their work cut out to finish second even next season. Looking at the team last night, obviously the keeper, even before what happened last night, there was question marks over De Gea. Is Dean Henderson the answer? I'm not so sure. I think as the sample size becomes larger, we start to see maybe a few flaws in Dean Henderson, because I've said it all along, there's a big difference playing for Sheffield United and Manchester United, where there's times in games where you don't touch the ball for a long time and you have to make the right decision in the right moment. And we don't know if he is that keeper. I thought Luke Shaw, in fairness to him, has really turned his form around. Wan-Bissaka, as much as I like him as a one-on-one defender, I would question him positionally, and often teams are quite happy to let him have the ball in attacking areas because they don't think that he has the quality. Maguire missed out last night, but even if Maguire basically has played every game for United up until the injury that he picked up this season, that is not always going to be the case. They need serious cover in central defence, and they need a proper central midfielder that can run a game, and maybe that would also allow a change in formation. I'm not mad about that 4-2-3-1 formation. I think you look at the successful teams at the moment in the Premier League, they tend to play 4-3-3.
Yeah, I think that they've got the completely wrong constellation of players. And, when we were talking with Daniel Harris yesterday, he was saying Solskjaer likes to keep the game relatively simple. He wants to play front foot football. It wants to play aggressive football. It's like that's well and good, and that's an attitude thing. But when it comes to those big European games, the opposition can work you out tactically and go, well, they've got players in the wrong positions, and we can find pockets of space here, and we can control the game. Like, there was a period last night where Manchester United had a bit of dominance, and if they'd scored, maybe they go on and they win the game pretty easily. But when they didn't score, it was relatively easy for the manager, the opposition manager, to look at them, analyse what was happening, make some changes, and completely nullify and essentially knock out Solskjaer as a relevant person in the game.
Yeah, and I think as well, what was very evident last night is the season is it's been a long season, and it goes back to what we were saying about the squad that Solskjaer has, where he hasn't rested players maybe as much as he would have wanted. And even you think back to the Leicester game, where obviously with the schedule he made all these changes, and you just saw how they don't have the quality to back up their first 11. So he's always going to pick his strongest team. And certain players, like Marcus Rashford, is getting a lot of criticism for his performance last night, but he looks like a player that's carrying a few knocks. He looks absolutely shattered. I think his form has been so patchy in the last few months that he's probably played himself out of a start for England at the Euros. Bruno Fernandes spent more time last night arguing with the referee than actually trying to influence the game. And again, he's a player that plays every week. They just looked absolutely shattered. So they have to go away and have a think about what kind of player they want to bring in. You know, this Sancho talk is not going to go away, but if you bring in Sancho, that's an improvement. But there is positives to take out of the season for Manchester United. And I can agree with you that it was very important that they win a trophy last night, but also I still would have been very much of the thinking that if they had won last night, you'd be saying, yeah, sure, it's a trophy, but it's still only the Europa League. United need to be thinking bigger than that.
And that's the funny thing, Phil. It would have been very interesting to see what would have happened had Manchester United won the penalty shootout last night. Is Solskjaer all of a sudden a genius?
Well, no one's saying he's a genius. That overreaction isn't there. No one's actually thinking that, are they?
No, definitely not now.
But before, if they'd won, who,
I mean,
where's the evidence for that?
Solskjaer's been held up as a hero at Old Trafford all season long. Like, I mean, it's hard not to root for him because he's an incredibly likeable man. But like, I think I would have been interested to see what would have happened had they won that penalty shootout last night. Just given the way this game was hyped beforehand, the importance of it, the history. All of a sudden, that history was coming home. Solskjaer got off the mark with a trophy at Manchester United. I would suspect it would have been unbelievably glowing in praise of Solskjaer as a season if they had won last night.
Yeah, I kind of think how it would have played out would have been, I can imagine his interviews after would have been, you know, this is just the start. Now we have to start trying to win bigger trophies. And, you know, 2 years down the line, the Europa League trophy became massive for United because they went on and they built on it. Obviously, that's not the case now. So we'll never know. But it certainly does beg the question, what happens if United don't get off to a good start next season? But in a way, the fact that they haven't won the trophy, Solskjaer can say to the board at Manchester United, do you know what? I think if we had a better squad, you know, I could have made more changes in that final. We're closing the gap on Manchester City, but they're still at the top. I need some investment. And maybe the whole Super League thing, this is how the Glazers get back on. Well, they're never going to be on side with the United fans because of the way they've run the club, but certainly they have to spend a bit of money. And there is, but we find ourselves nearly every summer saying United need 3 players.
Well, it's the stock and trade because they need 3 players. Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thanks, lads.
Phil Egan giving us his thoughts there. You can hear Phil, of course, this morning on Today FM. And, of course, you can read his stuff on otbsports.com. It is 7:59. Let's get to some of these comments quickly. That was embarrassing by Manchester United to lose, says Noel on YouTube. Was it embarrassing? Is it embarrassing to lose a Europa League final?
It was given the build-up. Because this was the coronation, wasn't it? And again, it was the Europa League coronation.
I don't think it's coronation, right? I think
that's how it was billed beforehand.
But it's not, though, because I think the point that Phil made there was that he would come out afterwards if you won the trophy and say, look, this isn't the trophy we want to win. And like the parallels with Ferguson, where he's close to getting sacked and then a scratchy enough team wins an FA Cup and it's a trophy and it buys you time. He doesn't have that time anymore. I think that's why. I think that's why this matters way more than they imbued. You're right. They did imbue so much meaning in it, and then when you lose, as you've said, you can't say this doesn't matter.
Yeah, like, again, this is just about not getting wound up on the outcome of last night. Like, there were, I just think the narrative
in
this morning
finals, outcomes matter.
Of course they do, but
that's the whole point of playing the games.
I know that, but when it comes to the fact that this was actually in a penalty shootout, had David De Gea scored and the Villarreal goalkeeper missed, say that little change, that slight change, Manchester United would now have a trophy in their cabinet. So does that trophy then change the outlook of Solskjaer? This is my point. My opinion is that no, it doesn't. What changes the view of Solskjaer is the decisions he made pre-match, the decisions he's made all season long, the inability to make proper substitutions. That, for me, is far more important than Solskjaer winning the Europa League this season.
Largely everything you say I agree with. The one caveat is that footballers seem to think that somehow trophies have superpowers and that they imbue them with something that they didn't previously have, and there's a weird alchemy involved in the winning of a trophy. It's this kind of, like, even if you look at Harry Kane using it as an excuse to wanting to leave, or Robin Van Persie, his inner little child, wanting to leave Arsenal and go somewhere where he could win trophies. This seems to be something, apart from all the extra money they make, that inspires them to greatness. And all of a sudden, in that dressing room, people are looking around and there's blame gaming and there's finger pointing and they're talking to their agents and they're bitching and they're moaning and they're whining. Now all of a sudden, that's what the summer is. And look, maybe it makes Solskjaer stronger, because he comes and he does a Klopp and he says, this team's rubbish, actually. For all the hype about the quality of our players, how many of them actually would make the team of the year, or how many of them would make, if you were picking a Premier League 11, not a team of the year, but actually picking a team, how many of our players would make that team? And the answer is not very many. Maybe none. Certainly you'd have some on the bench, but maybe none. And, like, is that going to be a team who can go and win the league? Probably not. So what do you do? That's why I think last night is, and that's why it's really interesting. I think there's plenty for us to...
I know, like, we're going around in circles here, but I just think that evidence was available before last night.
Yeah, but last night made it everybody, like, completely... There's no hiding it now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
You hide it over the course of a league season because there's 38 games, 1 week bad, 3 weeks in a row brilliant. They play some incredible football in semi-final. The away matches in particular, like... But that's all gone. That disappears. All the good work gets blown up because plucky little 50,000 town... you know, I really wish I'd watched the BT coverage now.
Yeah, so do I.
People get in touch with us saying it was shocking and hilarious. On the positives, McTominay showed he's starting to dominate the midfield without someone beside him. Big game for him, says Shane. Like, I think that's the other thing here is that Manchester United fans are lulling themselves into this. Oh, look, Luke Shaw is great. Wan-Bissaka is great. Harry Maguire is great. McTominay, he's really brilliant. I'm like, look back at that Liverpool team that got beaten in the Europa League final and pick out the superstars from that team who are part of the team that goes on to win the Champions League. I don't know. Is Luke Shaw going to be this good every game forever? Is he going to be someone that you can now say you pencil him in and because of what he's done over the last 12 months? Or is this a one-season thing for him? I don't know. Like, is he a championship-winning left-back? Is Wan-Bissaka a championship-winning right-back? Is Scott McTominay going to be Ilkay Gundogan next season, or Jordan Henderson? Is he going to be one of those players who you chalk in and say, yeah, week in, week out, we need this guy on our team, he's going to dominate? Like,
yeah, no, like, I mean, the answer is no.
So then he's not good enough, and off you go. Or great squad player, he's the new Matic, right? But, like, Matic didn't get you to where you needed to go either.
No, like, I mean, there is obviously, besides somebody better than Fred or somebody more suited to the role than Paul Pogba, Scott McTominay can go on to a whole other level. Like, it does seem that to pick him out after last night is a tad unfair. But it's interesting the point you make on Shaw and Wan-Bissaka. Like, two guys have had brilliant seasons. Like, there are certain elements of Manchester United's season that have gone very well.
As well as they can possibly go.
So they've maximised certain elements of their squad, which will be the real worry for Manchester United next season. I totally agree that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is under more pressure as a result of last night.
Do you think he's still the manager in January?
I don't know how the season's going to start, but if they're not in the top two come Christmas, which is a very realistic possibility. I think Manchester City and Liverpool will be the top 2 next season. Then I think he will be in a spot of bother because, as I say, Solskjaer has proven this season that he's a good manager, but he has yet to prove that he's a great manager.
Has he proved he's a good manager?
I'd give him good. I'd give him good on the season that we've had because I think there was just enough question marks about him early. There were so many easy question marks about him early in the season.
In the performance rankings, he's in green.
Yeah, just about edging into green.
I think he's definitely still in amber, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe amber, but like I wouldn't have him in red.
No,
like,
he's not.
He's no immediate danger. But maybe like it does.
Should he be in danger though? That's the point. Yeah. Like I don't know. Like it was last night a referendum on him. I've asked that question on Twitter. We'll see what the answer is. Shifty Lad says 2 super clubs beaten in finals lately to so-called smaller clubs, Leicester and Villarreal. In fairness, those 2 clubs really enjoyed winning, and something nice about seeing how the fans reacted. Watching there was like one of the fans at the bottom on the phone to somebody bawling his eyes out from Gdansk, phoning somebody back in the tiny seaside village of Villarreal. That was like, it's good. Obviously, because it's their first trophy, it meant so much to them, and that was a little bit of the extra magic. I think because there were stakes involved for Villarreal.
Yeah,
that helped up the stakes certainly from a neutral watching it from Manchester United's perspective. Zidane, Conte, and Allegri are all available this summer, says Will. Now, I think this is really important, right? Because I think that there was a point in Arsenal's history where Wenger was still clinging on to things that they could have gone out and they could have got Klopp. And that if they'd made the play for him and they'd put the architecture in place and said, you know, this is going to be how our transfer committee works, but you'll have final say, this is the money we have, look at this beautiful stadium, we just need somebody to bring a bit of rock and roll football to it, a bit of heavy metal.
They're two totally different scenarios. Like,
I'm just saying,
Wenger's the greatest manager in the history of Arsenal Football Club. So
he was coming to the end of his career. My point is that they didn't seize the moment. They waited another couple of another season, another second season, and it was like, look at that. Are they going to watch Conte go to Spurs? Maybe. I mean, maybe Conte won't go to Spurs. But are they going to watch Allegri? I don't know. I'm just saying.
Does Conte know the United way, though, Jared?
You sit on your hands. Well, I mean, that team, maybe the personnel there is perfect for 3 at the back and a packed midfield and 2 strikers.
Maguire, so Lindelof and Bailly playing every game beside her.
Wan-Bissaka
on the right of a 3,
Wan-Bissaka, that makes sense.
And then there's added protection for one of Bailly or Lindelof.
And you buy a right wing back or a right winger.
Yeah.
Or maybe the kid is such a great right winger that that's perfect.
Get more out of Alex Telles maybe as a wing back. Luke Shaw would certainly thrive on as a left wing back, you suspect.
And suddenly you can have Pogba and Bruno playing centrally, and everybody's kind of left leaning. Suddenly it makes a bit of sense. McTominay is fine because Harry Maguire steps up and fills space, or Wan-Bissaka. Like there's ways maybe to make that group of players work. That Solskjaer has been good enough to get them to second and to get beaten by Villarreal in the Europa League final. Shows you how lucky United were this season. That Chelsea had a bad manager for half the season and Liverpool had injuries. Can't beat a mid-table La Liga side. United conceded even more than Liverpool, says Dan. So I guess what happens in the aftermath of finals like this is that we look back on the whole season now as a whole and start to recalibrate. And you're essentially saying Solskjaer has had a bad season.
Yes.
And last night was further evidence to make that case.
Not a bad season as such. He has shown failings during the season, and everybody's talking about those same failings last night. I'm not saying that the Europa League doesn't matter. Like, that would have brought so much happiness to the squad. As you said, it's this intangible thing. But the fact that they were in the Europa League in the first place shows that they have failed at previous points in the season. And those failures, for me, should be as important as the failures last night. I know you disagree with that, and fair enough. But I just think that there's a lot of, not scoreboard journalism, but a lot of reading into the outcome of last night, which, like...
Outcomes matter in sport. That's
do.
the whole point. This whole thing that scoreboard journalism is nonsense is like grand. If you're Dutch, you can 100% say scoreboard journalism doesn't matter because we don't really care about the outcome. All we care about is the fact that the football is good quality. Like Johan Cruyff talking about how crap the football was. That was you giving us that, wasn't it? You were telling us that about the Dutch. Johan Cruyff. Yeah. They reached the World Cup final. He's like, nah, I don't care. This is nonsense. That's fine. When you have that philosophy, that's fine. The rest of the world plays competitive elite sport to win.
Okay, but one of the reasons why they arrived at that outcome, I'm thinking you should be reading into the reasons why the outcome happens, the actual decisions taken during the season, the decisions taken last night.
So then it was fate. Actually, Solskjaer was right. It was fate, but his fate was to lose because he's not a good manager.
He's not a world-class manager.
Well, in that case, then last night is actually the final nail in the coffin. Get rid of him.
Yeah, maybe it will
be. Because he ain't not going to get any better.
Maybe it will be. Maybe it will be. Like, I mean, there is certainly enough people getting completely carried away in the space of 12 hours. Like, you asked them at 8:10 last night, it is 12 hours, how they would have felt about it and how they would feel this morning. I think a lot of people have changed their mind. I just think that there was enough reasons during the season to sort of make your mind up before last night.
But are the Man United fans not entitled to like...
Of course they are.
Yeah, but to change their minds on the basis of success or failure. Like,
It's just, I haven't necessarily changed my mind. Of course people are entitled to change their mind.
But the United fans particularly. Like, that's the bit of... All sports relationships are faith, right? It's faith that something magical is going to happen. It's magic realism. That's the whole point of following a team, is that this year is going to be our year. Something weird. There's going to be a new kid that no one's ever heard of, or the manager is going to be such a genius that somehow our crowd of also-rans are going to turn into Jim McGuinness's Donegal. Something weird, some alchemy, as I said earlier, is going to happen, right? That's what it means to be a sports fan. And winning the trophy last night for Manchester United would have allowed them to continue doing that. And it might have given Solskjaer some kind of weird boost as well.
Maybe, yeah.
Now, the alternative is that he becomes Jurgen Klopp and rips the team apart and sells De Gea and sells Pogba and maybe takes a big decision and sells somebody else who people don't expect him to sell and completely recast the team and signs 5 new players and goes, right, this is my team now.
Like, from what Phil was saying there, that's probably not going to happen. He certainly pointed to maybe too much loyalty on the part of Solskjaer. Now, in fairness, there was a good case to be made during the season that Solskjaer put his arm around a lot of the players, made them trust the manager, and that sort of relationship helped them have good moments throughout the season. So it kind of works both ways, and maybe he needs to be a little bit more ruthless. That's certainly a criticism you could level at him from last night. Okay.
It's 12 minutes past 8 this morning. If you want to get in touch, 0879 180 180. You can WhatsApp that number. You can text it. You can get us on Twitter at Off The Ball. If you're a Man United fan, leave a comment for us. Tell us. We're asking if last night was a referendum on Solskjaer, or if you should have known what was going to happen. I mean, there's a very strong case that Owen is making that actually...
You should have just been able to gaze into your crystal ball and predict that David De Gea would have missed.
We didn't learn anything last night, is what you're saying. And I think
that's if you take my logic to the end point, yeah.
Yeah, there's a very strong case that is 100% correct. I just want to bring you the joys of on the full-time whistle reporting and the 90-minute whistle. So the front of the Telegraph this morning is fight to the finish. What's going to happen? We'll keep going. United battle in Europa League is the headline after 90 minutes. And then... poor Mike McGrath, who's in Gdansk, is like, Cavani stuck a second-half equaliser to send Man United into extra time, and Gdansk is like 1,200 words where he's talking about Wayne Rooney was on the big screen, and it's like, did you know this? Solskjaer, who came from a goal behind, when? 22 years ago when he won the treble at the Nou Camp, saw a transformed team after the break as they shifted momentum and equalised through Cavani's 17th goal of the season. But you got to write those full-time reports in the aftermath about how they bottled it. Did they bottle it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It's Solskjaer bottlers?
Yeah, let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's give ourselves that clickbait headline.
No, do you
Manchester United bottled it. Yeah, I think to a certain point, because they were the better team on paper and they didn't beat the team that were weaker than them. And for me, that constitutes a bottling in most scenarios. The penalty shootout though was crazy. Like, how much are there were so many moments last night when you felt, God, I really hope this guy does not miss. I certainly felt that when it came to Lindelof's penalty. I thought when Shaw almost missed, I thought it would be, oh God, that's going to taint his season almost. Bailly maybe as well. I thought that there would be enough of a reason to start apportioning blame to certain players who would have missed a penalty, and you were kind of like hoping that they would score, because again, this kind of comes back to the point that whoever was going to miss that penalty was going to be in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. And now all of a sudden we're having a conversation about David De Gea. Now, there's more to the David De Gea thing than missing a penalty, obviously, because it is that crazy statistic about never saving a penalty since, what is it, 2016?
Well, Tommy Martin on Virgin had a good... He did actually save one, but it ended up getting retaken. So even the one that he did save, I don't know if he'd come off his line or if somebody else... I don't know. I don't know the details of it. But, like, I mean... save a bloody penalty. Like, you know, I don't know.
There was a lot of going the wrong way, I felt, in the penalty shootout last night. I mean, Francis Coquelin's penalty right into the roof of the net probably summed up. But like, was everybody just buzzing after playing in front of fans for 120 minutes?
Maybe.
Like,
I thought that was a bit of a fluke. I thought that had the bang of like, was it Matty Holland hit the crossbar? Where that one was going to like cannon back off the crossbar and cross the halfway line.
Yeah.
Because Francis Coquelin, I thought, definitely was like, I am just going to put my foot through this and I don't really care where it goes. It might go to the moon, I'm not sure. Look, we're a bit late, 16 minutes past 8. We've got to take a quick break. We're going to be back with more. We're going to be talking about the latest edition of the Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran pod with Tommy. We're going to be talking to Andrew Omobamidele about his first call-up to the senior international men's team. We'd love to hear from you. The Man United fans are agitated this morning. If you're a Liverpool fan, we'd like to hear from you too. 087 9180 180 is the WhatsApp number.